Hello, YouTubers, TikTok, however you guys see these videos. I'm going to go over how to install the rock slider on a CanAm Maverick X3. Will fit most of the models. So this is a two-seater design, so most of the two-seater will work with this. And it's pretty nice. It was the flush mount style. They make the styles with the tubes and stuff, which they're okay, but those tubes get beat up because they stick out, and I just don't want the extra, I don't have as much clearance because the tube's in the way. So this will sit flush and really don't change anything. My last trip out, I beat up one of those rear rocker panels pretty good and even had to buy a new one. So I want to put these on there just to keep it last a little longer. And they're pretty straightforward, $300 to $400. I got this one on eBay. You could probably get it, on Amazon or something like that. I like to use the eBay for stuff like this. It shows it's the Rival brand. I didn't even search for that. I just searched for CanAm Maverick, 2024, rock slider, and I ended up finding it that way. But it comes with all the hardware and everything needed to mount it. It's pretty straightforward. Your Mavericks actually have, there's the three mounting holes there you can see on the rock guard itself, and you actually have little divots in your plastic to where you would drill, because it's designed from the factory to have these added later. Now my dilemma is I have decals on it and all those little indentions are covered up. So I already did the other side, and I just had to put it up there and mock it up kind of, and then mark my holes, and was able to get it to work that way. So if you can't see those indentions or it's scuffed up so bad, you can just hold it up there and get it lined up. Pretty straightforward. I'll kind of go over the hardware here with it. Give me a second. All right, so this is the hardware that it comes with. Now it comes with double. Like I said, I already did the other side. You get your rivets, some washers for the rivets, some little heavy-duty inset washers, which are for your skid plate, some spacers for those three holes. They sit back here. That's how you gap it. And then you got your bolts and then your front bolt. So it's pretty straightforward. You got these little spacers. They're basically going to sit right here, and then you're going to have your tube frame on the other side, and that's why this bolt, I kind of have this one mocked up to show you. You have this bolt, which will go through your tube frame, and then this is the one that's going to be on the outside. So it's basically going to sit like that, and you're going to bolt it down. So you have two long ones and one short one. The short one will be up top. The long ones will go on the bottom, so you really can't screw it up because it really only goes one way. And that's the other two bolts for these two spacers. This one goes up front. You take out your factory one behind the front tire there, and they give you a longer one since you're adding a little more thickness there, and you'll just thread that in. So it's pretty simple. There's not much to it. The key thing you have to have is you got to drill a hole big enough for this, which is about 3/4. It even helps if it was a little bigger, just so you have a little play when you're sliding it through your plastic. I thought you could have your plastic come flush, slide it in there, so I just made a small hole first, but these are designed to have the hole big as this because this is made to bolt directly. The plastic pushed it out a hair and kind of bowed it, so it wasn't designed just for a small screw hole. They want the hole this big, so kind of a little trial and error. I just was trying not to make a big hole and make it clean looking, but you have to have something big enough to drill that hole. Other than that, everything else is straightforward. You do have to drill out your old rivets on your skid plate, which are underneath. And I'll flip this over. So you have these holes here, and that's where these are going to sit, like that, and you're going to rivet them back in all along. The reason I broke one of the rivets is they're pretty flimsy aluminum rivets, which that's what they come with factory, but these are even flimsier because they want you to put the washer. The factory style has the bigger head, so they want you to put the washer in there to make it bigger head. So when you crank it down, you got this much area going into this spacer like that. I bought some from Napa Hardware that are identical to what comes factory on it, My problem with those, I bought them for what's already on there, and the factory ones are shorter. These are an inch long, so I'm going to have to order an inch long style, because the factory ones on there are only like 3/4 of an inch for if you ever were to mess into your plastics up or your rivets. Napa has them. So we'll get to mocking it up and kind of show you what's the next step. All right, guys, I got kind of mocked up there to show you how to do that. It'll kind of stay up there, but I use the jack just to kind of keep it up there a little more square. You could probably do it just by sitting it up there, but it's easier with the jack holding it for me. And then I want to show you some of the tools needed. So you'll need the T30 star bit, which will take out that factory front bolt behind the front wheel up there. And then you have some Allens, which are 5mm and a 4mm, which, you know, help install these new bolts. They're not star bits, they're Allens. Your rivet gun, and then you have your 13 socket. I use 13 socket and a 13 wrench, and then the 18mm, because you also need to take, it's a lot easier if you take your seat out, and that's what you need to take your seat out. And then the drill bit I use is kind of that tapered bit, because I don't have, you could probably find a hole saw like style drill bit, a hole drill bit, and get an inch or 3/4. I just have this tapered style, and the biggest side of it is almost perfect. I just run it right through there and waller it around a little bit, but it's almost perfect. And then you also need a drill bit to drill out your old rivets a hair bigger than, you know, the hole that the rivets, that little pin that comes out. And then I have, you could use a marker to mark your holes, but I just use that little, I don't know, some cheap old Harbor Freight tool I got. It's just got a little point to it, and I just poke it into my plastic there to drill those 3 holes on the side there. So I'll kind of show you these a little closer. But yeah, this will get you close to that same size. So that's what I used. And you're just drilling through plastic right here. There's no metal or anything. So this eats right through it real easy. And then again, you'll have to drill out your factory rivet that's up underneath. I recommend with that, you want to wear eye protection, because you're going to have metal shavings flying down in your face. So eye protection there, and they're hot shavings. So just be careful when drilling out those rivets. Let's see what else. The rivet. So one problem I had is, since these are such long rivets, when it starts grabbing it, it runs out of space. So I was actually just using, you could use any kind of a spacer to put in between here and the rivet. I was actually using the factory little, lost the washer, but I was using the factory little spacers for the skid plate, and I would put it in between here, where it's in between here where it's grabbing it, and so that way the tool is pulling back here. I don't know why, once it gets so far out it can't grab it, so I had to cheat a little bit. That was my only issue with the rivets. So just, if you have a good rivet gun, I just have this cheap Harbor Freight one. It works, but for some reason it doesn't like it once that rod gets so long. So now we'll get to marking it and drilling it. Kind of show you what I find the easiest way. So you want to take your T30 and take that factory bolt out, and then you'll put this one in here, which is a, if I remember, it's a 4mm, and you're going to go ahead and just kind of lightly put it in there. You don't have to crank it down, but what this is going to do is going to get you lined up to where your other holes will be, should be good to go. And after that, basically all you're going to do, you can use a marker, whatever, but you want to make sure you have this, if you need to lower the jack a hair, but you want this kind of resting snug. It'll pull itself in, obviously, once you get the bolts in there, but I kind of wanted to make sure I got it, because you could have it jammed up like that, and I didn't really care for it like that, so I'm going to have it about like right there. So once you do that, you're just going to mark dead center of this hole. And how I did it, I went ahead and just did this one first. I went ahead and bolted it up and then marked these two once it's bolted up. And I'm going to do that again just to be safe. So we'll buzz this off again. I'll take that out. And again, that's just that longer screw and washer that you replace over the factory one. And I'll just kind of slide this out. We'll move it out of the way. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pop the seat out. And it's just 13 millimeters in the front. And then in the back, it's that 18 millimeter. And I'm not going to bore you with how to take the seat out, so I'll be right back. I got the seat out. It just makes it easier, and it doesn't take too long to take the seat out. But next, I'm going to use this this little bit, and I'm going to take it all the way in. So you can see the little indentation that I marked, and I'm just going to line it up right there. Maybe slip on it. And I'm just going to take it all the way through because it takes about that much. Get some of this off, and then I kind of just wallow it out a little bit more. It doesn't take much. That way your spacer that you got to put in there, I'm going to show you. It will slide right in there. So see, that's about perfect. So you'll spin, it won't stick, because you don't want it to stick because it makes it awkward to get the bolt in there straight. You'll have it cockeyed or you know, whatever. So that speed bit there does the best for me on getting it about accurate. Let me show you what it looks like from the inside before we bolt it up. Okay, this is the inside, and I forgot to mention, if you don't have that popped out already, one other tool you're going to need is a razor blade, because where that's supposed to bolt in is right here in this, so it's got these little, so you're just going to cut it with a sharp razor blade. Just don't cut your arm off. And then let's do this one here. Try to get the frames in the way on this one, so you kind of got to be careful. And then let's do this one here. And then you can kind of pry it up like that. And see, there's your hole now. And that's where your bolt's going to go through there. So I'll show you that. So that's where you're going to use this long bolt, which is going to go through here. And you're going to catch the spacer on the other side. Where did I set that? It's already in there. That explains it. And you're just gonna try to thread in that spacer with this bolt. And it's easier sometimes if you put the other bolt on the other side, so you have something to kind of grab. So I'm gonna thread that in there. So kind of like that, and then you can stick it there, line it up in the hole, and find out where it lines up. And you might have to play around with it because there's a little plastic piece in there that kind of is in the way because it's snug right here. But once you get it, you'll bolt this down here and that'll pull that in. I usually wait till I get the front on to snug it down there, but now it's in there. And once you get this bolt down, then I just bend this back down. So you could cut it all the way up. That's up to you guys. Okay, so now you can kind of see how that looks on this side once it's mounted in there with that longer bolt on the back side. And then once you snug that tight, you'll have those threads now to thread into. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and kind of mock it up and get it put in there. So again, I just use this jack as kind of a little stable point. So you want to get the front one put in up here again. And I'm just going to kind of, I don't snug it all the way, I want a little way. We'll snug it in there. And then now we're going to use the Allen to go into this one. And this is the T5 Allen. And you're just going to use this bolt with a washer, and you're just going to thread it in right there. And you might not be able to get this all the way tight because the inside might start, like the inside's starting to spin. So you'll want to hold the inside's a 13. So we'll go ahead and do that. You could use the impact and go that way, but I think it's just as easy to hold this on the inside. And now we're just gonna. So basically, it's tightening the inside as it's tightening the outside. And once one of them gets tight, it's going to start snugging in, and it's pulling itself in next to the plastic now. And I'm going to get this nice and snug to make sure these other holes are all lined up. Okay, so there she is. And then once you get these holes, it'll pull it in tighter at the bottom, because as you can see, my jack's not holding it anymore. She's up there. And we'll just mark those 2 holes now, which are right there. And it'll snug in right there. And you want to try to get it as dead center. If, like I said, if you don't have the decals, you should be able to see the indentions to drill a hole right here. But since I have all this plastic crap in the way, I got to kind of make a hole and make sure it's lined up there. And that's that. So now this is an extra step, but that way I know for sure these two are right on. And so we're going to take these 2 out and then drill these 2 holes and put our other spacers in. And then we'll go to the bottom and show you kind of how the rivets work. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we're ready to drill these next 2 holes. You can kind of see the little indentions right there. And again, it's pretty easy. You're just going to take it, you know, whatever time. You can do the hole saw style, which will kind of cut around like this. I like this step up bit though. It actually works pretty good for plastic. So you can see I'm down at an angle just trying to get started, but then you want to end up kind of going straight in because the bolt needs to be level with the floor. And you want to go all the way in because there's 2 layers of plastic there. And again, just kind of wallow it around. That way you got a nice nice hole there. And we're going to do this side. And if you want to test it before you get too far, you can grab the spacer and make sure it kind of goes in there with a little play, you know, and it looks like it's going to sit pretty level, so that should be okay for these 2 now. So that's the next step is you're going to go from the inside. This one's easy to get to from where the seat is. This one you got to access from under here on the skid plate. I'm going to sweep this up and I'll kind of show you this one, since this one's a little more tricky. This one will be identical to how this one is. So we'll be right back. Okay, so now we're underneath by the front spacer that we got to put in, and then this is the inside hole that you have to access. They have this little window in the skid plate, which makes it kind of nice, but if you notice, the bolt's pretty long, so you kind of got to weasel it up in there first and then get it in there. And then there's another piece of plastic right here that's kind of in the way, so you got to get around that and then get your bolt in there, and then you want to line up the spacer. And again, it's kind of a trial and error thing, and once you get it if I can get it twisted in there, that little piece of plastic makes it tough. So then now once you thread it in there like this, I'm going to kind of lightly thread it in there pretty good. So once you have it threaded in there, now you can bolt it up from the front side. But I got to do the inside seat one, and then I'll come back because that one's still left, the middle one here. Okay, so once you get them all mounted, you should have 3 of them like this. And again, this is the shorter one. and then you have the longer ones. Reason being because this tapers down and it still needs to sit flush with this last outer crease there. And same with this one, it even goes in more. So this one's going to stick out even more. And I don't have them all the way snug down inside, but they're pretty close. So that's kind of the look you're going for there. So next I'm going to go ahead and we'll set on the rock slider and bolt her down loose. And then I'm going to show you the rivet side next. Okay, so we got the skid plate on there, and then you just want to lightly thread in the last 3 bolts there. I lost it. And you're just going to kind of thread it in there. Maybe. Up in there. Okay, so that's threaded in there loose. They're all threaded in there nice and loose. I want to show you the rivets now, so I'm going to take this off and try to show you what we're trying to look at underneath. So underneath, we'll let her focus here, and you're going to have your old rivets you got to drill out, and there's 5 of those along the bottom here. And you're going to drill those out, and then that's where that new spacer is going to countersink inside this hole, and then you're going to run new rivets up. And you see why they're about 1 inch long, because I can almost get my finger in here. Obviously this isn't snug down yet, but that's why they're longer. And if you were to snug it down, it'll kind of push it in, and then your hole's off-centered. So I like to do it loose right now, drill these out, and put in the new rivets. And I'll come back and kind of show you after one of those are in. All right, guys, after you drill out your rivets, you should have something that looks just like this all along through there. And you see my holes are pretty center within this here, so it'll make it easy to rivet it in. And but I want to show you what it looks like when you're drilling those out. So you should have something like this once you drill them out, because you're basically drilling this piece out right here. Obviously they're bigger, and that's why you use the washers on the new one to be that same diameter. And what I found is after you drill them out, I use just a little punch. It wouldn't matter what you use, because once you drill it out, there's a little part that's left. This part right here that's kind of left if you don't drill it out good enough. And I just tap that through to make sure your hole's clean and ready for the new rivet to go back in. And again, remember to put the washer on these when you do that. So we're going to go to that step next. All right, so we're underneath and we're going to put in the rivet. So you're going to have your little washer that's going to kind of, it sits inside this hole. You see kind of how it's got a little lip to it. So you're going to have that go in there. You're going to have your washer on your rivet, and then you're going to get your rivet into the hole. And you see how I have a little play because this isn't tight yet. And so then you're just going to rivet it down once you kind of get it in its home there. I'm going to try to get this with my rivet gun in here. And then you're just going to crank it in there. You'll see it snug up. Oops, sorry, I bumped you. Let me focus in there. You'll see it kind of snug it up, and you can see it pulling itself up. We'll see if my ratchet works this time. So see, it does it. Once it gets, try to get you a better angle here. But you see how long that stem is. It grabs there, but for some reason, once it gets so long, it doesn't grab that at all. So I'm going to try a little trick. So I take like 3 of these, and we're just going to, because you're basically trying to limit the space. And so we're going to put this on there again, and now we're going to see if we can snap it. Still nothing. Last time I was having to use all of them. I think my rivet gun's getting a little wore out. No, so I have one other trick. So I'm going to take out this bolt, and that will give me even more grip on this. So we're going to put this spacer back on and then just the gun all the way up there. Now the problem is when you do this, it makes the gun real hard. But there you go, it broke. And here's the piece that, you know, it breaks once it goes in there. And then you just pull in your rivet gun and that'll fall out. So, but that's what it should look like in all 5 of those spots. And you see that's not going nowhere now. And you go all the way down. But like I told you earlier, the factory ones, you don't have to use the washer. But the problem with the factory ones, they're not an inch long. So if you buy some, you want to get some that are an inch long to fill this extra space. I even have 3/4 ones, and they're still not long enough. I tried one of those. So an inch seems like the going rate on that. But I'm going to show you one other thing before I let you guys go. So I wanted to show you what the shorter rivet did. That is why you need those longer ones. So once I put it through, instead of it grabbing the frame and plastic underneath, it wasn't long enough to spread out like that. So it just ended up spreading out on the spacer itself. But that's kind of what the factory one looks like. So if you get an inch longer, it should do this exact same scenario, but up in your frame. And that's what snugs this up into the frame. And one other little thing I wanted to show you before I let you guys go. Again, sorry for the long video. You're welcome to fast forward through any of these parts. Is this middle one's the easiest one to show you how the finished product looks. So you got that long bolt going through your frame, and then you got the spacer, and then on the opposite side is where that Allen bolt holds on the skid plate. So you should have some finished product that looks like this here. You have your 3 bolts that you watch me install, the rivets underneath, and then here's that factory one. No drill or anything, it's just a longer bolt that goes up front and replaces your OEM one. But gives it a little more strength down there. Covers up my decals, but it doesn't look too bad. But it will save on your plastic a lot, so well worth it for the price. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to message and I'll try to answer.